and demoniac qualities. The divine and the demoniac natures. Yeah. So what Krishna here explains is that we discussed that there is everybody is born with these good and bad qualities. So I'll share my screen with you and we will touch that verse where Krishna speaks about the nature of a person. Everyone can see my screen and everyone has this link to go to that particular chapter and the verse. Yes, it's chapter 16, verse 1 to 3. So the first word which we had discussed last time was Abhijatasya. So Abhijatasya means that everyone is born with with these natures, divine and demoniac natures. And the mentality, of someone is uh, is something which he is born with, but is always on a spectrum of vice and virtue. So we had discussed that if we consider ourselves on a spectrum, so one side is vice and one side is virtue. So vice is the bad and virtue is the good nature. So everyone is born at some point on that spectrum, as Krishna says in Abhijatasya. Now, that is 16.1 to 3. And then from 16.4, he explains the nature of the demoniac as to what are the qualities of a demoniac person. Means who is that person who is on the vice side. So if you consider someone to be more towards the vice side on the spectrum, then what are those? How is his nature? What is the quality? So he says, Dambho Darpo Abhimanascha, Krodha Parushyameva cha, Agyanam Chabhijatasya, Partha Sampada Asurim. So he says, pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. These qualities belong to those of demoniac nature, O son of Pritha. So Pritha is no one but Arjun. So Krishna is talking to Arjun. And does anyone know who's Pritha?
Kunti.
Kunti. So Kunti's other name was Pritha. And that is the reason why Arjun is called Parth. So son of Pritha is Parth. So this verse is saying that what are the negative qualities? But who is a demoniac person? Who thinks that these pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance are his assets. So when someone thinks these are his assets, then that person is demoniac. Otherwise, we all have these nature within us. But if we recognize them and consider them as our drawback, then there are chances to improve. But if someone thinks these are assets, then Krishna is saying that these qualities are the demoniac nature. Now, next we discussed on the verse 13 to 15. Now, this particular verse actually explains Duryodhan, proper Duryodhan, the nature of Duryodhan. So, what it says is, Itamadya maya labdhamimam prapyasya manoratham idamasti adamapi me bhavishyati punardhanam. So it says the demoniac person thinks, so much wealth do I have today, and I will gain more according to my schemes. So what happens is that everyone has that greed, everyone has the lust to gain more and more, and has schemes. And everyone thinks that so much is mine now and it will increase in the future more and more. Everyone plans for that, to increasing his wealth based on the desire. And when someone does that, there are obstacles. Everyone faces obstacles when they try to implement their so-called schemes. Now, here there is a difference between a wise and the virtuous, that a wise person will try to eliminate his obstacles up to any extent, whereas a virtuous person tries to deal with the obstacles and tries to do all the activities in order to fulfill those schemes in a legitimate manner or according to the dharma. But a wise or a vicious person, he would go up to any extent and try to eliminate the obstacles. So what do I do to fulfill those schemes and get rid of those obstacles? What it says, it's that asau maya hatah shatruha harne chaparanapi. So he says that he is my enemy and I've killed him. So whoever is my enemy or whoever is my obstacle, I destroy him to fulfill my desire or my scheme. And after eliminating them, what do I become? I become Ishvaro Amaham Bhogi Siddhoham Balvan Sukhi. So when I will eliminate all my obstacles, I'll become Ishwar, I'll become the Lord, and I'll become the Bhogi. The what does Bhogi mean? He becomes the enjoyer. So I become the Lord, I become the enjoyer of all this wealth, of all the successful schemes. And then what happens then? Then if people are thinking that I am not doing legitimate things or I am adharmi, then what do I do? Then I will do some PR exercise, some public relationship. What I will do? I will do some, sorry. So there is one more thing here, that then I will enjoy, and I'm perfect, I'm powerful, and I'm the richest man surrounded by aristocratic relatives. So I'll be surrounded by all the aristocratic people and powerful people, and there will be no one so powerful and happy as I am. This is what I want to become after destroying my obstacles. And if then people think that I am a wrong doer or I am doing some adharmic or non-dharmic activities, then I shall perform some sacrifices, I shall perform some yagyas, I shall give some charity, and thus I shall rejoice. So in that way, if I perform some sacrifices, if I do some dharmic activities, then I will in return get more wealth and more money. More wealth and more happiness. So that's how a demoniac person thinks. But what does Krishna call him? He calls him agyana vimohitaha. He calls them, these people are, such persons are deluded by ignorance. They are agyanis. So this is the verdict from Krishna in terms of such people. Now, everyone does have lust, greed, and anger up to some extent. But if someone goes to satisfy that lust, greed, determines whether he is divine or demoniac. This is what we discussed last time, as one of you said. Now, the next thing which we discussed, if anyone remembers, was tribulations and temptations. Anyone remembers this?
So temptations can become desire,
Yeah,
and desire can become urge.
right. So, who are the demoniac people? I don't know whether we discussed this, but I will just revise that. So, when there are divine people, I mean virtuous people, when there are tribulations or temptations, so these two things will always happen to anyone in this life. So, there will be bad times and then there will be desires and temptations. So, up to what limit do we go to handle the tribulations? So, for example, if someone is under stress, so some people can remain silent and try to be peaceful. Some people can, react in such a way and be angry at someone. Some people may have very bad responses. So it depends person to person up to what extent they go. And some people may even go and beat someone up when they are, uh, you know, uh, stressed about some tribulations. And if there are temptations, the same thing happens. So if there are people who are virtuous, they will try to not cross their limits on to satisfy the temptations, but they will try by dharmic means as to how we can satisfy our desires. So Krishna explains the same thing in chapter 7 about the kama. So chapter 7 verse 11, he says that balam balavatam chaham kama rag vivarjitam dharma viruddho bhuteshu kamo asmi bharatarshava. He says that I am the strength of the strong, devoid of passion and desire. Now, kama, he is directly referring to sex life. He says, I am sex life which is not contrary to religious principles. So, kama can also be sex life, can also be a greed for something, or it can also be lust for some material benefits, or it can be for wealth. For anything, we can use this word kama. But Krishna says that I am, if it is contrary to religious principles, then that karma is me. That is Krishna himself. So it is not wrong to have the desire and to fulfill it if done in the according to the religious principles. So according to the dharma. So when the people are demoniac, they can go up to any limits to satisfy their karma. So for them, there is no religious principles. So they will cross those boundaries. They will go to any kind of means to satisfy their desire. So demoniac is also defined as when a person responses to tribulations and temptations become destructive. So nowadays we see a lot of mental issues in a lot of people. So if you see people have mental issues, um, and basically the reason is their responses to these tribulations and the temptations of life are destructive. So they are not able to handle the stress, or they are not able to handle the temptations. That's why their responses are bad, and that's why they have this kind of mental issues. So being evil is not a category, it's just the degree in which the person responds. So no evil kinds of souls actually. Everyone is born with all these qualities. But the demoniac people, they keep doing the wrongdoings again and again. So on the spectrum, if you see vice to virtue, the demoniac people constantly thrive to go towards vice. They don't think there is any religious principle to satisfy their karma. Now, so moving on to the next part, that was um, the inner feelings. Now, this is about the activities that someone does. Now, when we go to looking at the inside of someone, you try to see that we see that we create a lot of images, a lot of kind of uh, uh, pictures and internal analysis which goes on inside us, and thoughts which go inside us. But what kind of thoughts are, so for example, if someone watches movies, so what kind of movie someone watches, and what kind of movies he connects with, it determines, like, what the inner side of that person is. So for example, if someone has some thoughts which are not acceptable currently, and some which are acceptable, but he uh, over a period of time, he allows the mind to entertain those unacceptable thoughts, then, or destructive imagination. He allows that, to uh, to be accepted inside that person. Then he slowly goes towards the vicious side on the spectrum. Now, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen overnight or at instantly. It happens over a period of time. So if you think about movies that we watch today and the movies that we were watching 20 years ago, so there were many things which were unacceptable at that time, but over a period of time we have you know accepted a lot of things, and now they have become a norm when we see in the movie. So it doesn't make that kind of an unacceptable feeling within us when we look at them. So with Duryodhan, this was the same problem. He, just stop sharing my screen. So he had a big background. He had a lot of inner things happening inside him. So when he was a child, when he was he was born in Hastinapur, and when he was a child, he was born with an entitlement. He was born with an entitlement of becoming the king. Now, it is said that the more one thinks about that, the entitlement, the more he becomes endangered. So he was thinking about the entitlement of being a king all the time. And what happened was, when the Pandavas came to Hastinapur, they were very, they had very divine qualities, and they came from, the association of all the sadhus and the brahmanas from the forest. So they were very good kids, when they came to Hastinapur. And the attention of Duryodhan was taken away and went to Pandavas. And that he could not handle. He became very furious with that. So he started to feel that my entitlement is going away. And to get back that entitlement, I have to do something. Because everybody started liking Yudhishthir, everybody started liking Arjun, because they're very, you know, uh, very subtle, very calm and composed kind of kids, because they were staying with all the rishis and everyone in the forest. So when this entitlement mentality, when that is taken away from a person, that determines whether he has the response of that determines whether he is divine or demoniac. So if someone is entitled to something and it's taken away from him, if he's able to handle it gracefully, then he has divine qualities. But he becomes very aggressive and responds to the extent of killing someone who's trying to get his entitlement, then that kind of a person is definitely demoniac. And Duryodhan did have that kind of mentality. So so when you see when there are kids, when they have toys with them, and some other kids comes and snatches away that toy from them, some kids start crying, some kids start complaining, or some go to the extent of shouting. But there are some kids who will just go and hit the other kid and get their toy back. So there are different types of responses depending on the nature of someone. So Duryodhan response to that over a period of time became demoniac. His first conspiracy um, was to poison whom?
Bhim.
Bhim.
Bhim. And
Beam.
does anyone know, did we discuss this last time? Why did he try to poison Bhim?
Because
Mm.
Beam was a bit naughty child and he was very playful and he used to lift everyone and throw them in river or pond. And
Yes,
Duryodhan didn't like it because he was a bit disrespectful for him because he was thinking he's a future king.
very nice, very nice. Thank you. Who was that? Sorry, I didn't get it.
Naisha.
Thank you, Naisha. So Duryodhan, till the time Pandavas came, he was considered to be the strongest. So he used to, be the most strong kid among all those kids. And when Pandavas came in, to his surprise, Bhima was more stronger than Duryodhan, and he lifted him and threw him in the water. Now, for Duryodhan, main thing was that the toy was taken away. The kingdom, which was his toy, was it was like because Yudhishthir came in, everybody started looking at him as the next crowned prince. So he started thinking that my toy is being taken away, my entitlement of being the strongest kid is being taken away, by Bhim picking up and throwing. So he became very furious. So his first conspiracy by his own, without any help, without any help of his uncle, Mama Shakuni, was to poison Bhim. He actually poisoned his food. He invited him for a kind of a meal, get together meal, and served him with nice food, and he put poison in that meal. So if someone who puts poison into someone's food, you can imagine how much poison does that person have internally. So the kind of images and the kind of thoughts that go within us, if we continue to give those wise thoughts, if there are any wise thoughts, and we continue to give importance to the wise thoughts and are entertained by those wise thoughts, entertained by those bad thoughts, then those bad thoughts become a norm. And for Duryodhan, it was a norm. It was actually being clever to have poisoned Bhim. And after poisoning Bhim, when the Bhim became unconscious, all the brothers actually tied him up and threw him into the river, so that there is no traces left, of their conspiracy. So he was considering himself very clever in doing this kind of a deed. So these kind of the points which they show that he was giving more importance to all his wise thoughts, all his demoniac thoughts, more and more. So as we said again, evil is not a an identity. Yeah, it is the degree. It is the degree. So up to the degree one can go and do evil things, it depends on what his inner acceptance to evil is. Does it make sense? Yeah. Yes. Any comments or questions so far?
No.
No.
Mhm.
Okay.
No.
So Duryodhan, next thing, what Duryodhan was thinking, that sorry, I missed my. Where was I? Sorry, I missed my context.
He poisoned Beam, and till what extent he went.
Yeah.
So the
So
degree of evil he had was,
That
yeah.
degree of evilness, yeah.
yeah. So the next conspiracy which he uh, was planned with the conspiracy which was the most the conspiracy of the highest degree. So he did a lot of conspiracies after that as well, but they were hidden conspiracies. Even poisoning Bhim was a hidden conspiracy, so that nobody knew that he's doing it. Only his brothers, knew that, because tying Bhim up and throwing him to the river. But the biggest conspiracy over a period of time, because he gave importance to his vicious thoughts over a period of time, was burning the Pandavas alive in a place called Lakshagraha. Now that was uh, the highest degree of you know the evilness one can do, because that is something like, openly burning someone up. There is no uh, hiding of this conspiracy. Openly he could plan this, did everything, and tried to burn all the Pandavas and Kunti in the Lakshagraha. So that up to that extent it went, this kind of vicious thoughts. And just to go a little back, um, everyone knows about a bit of a history of Yudhishthir. Yudhishthir actually was the crowned prince after some time in Hastinapur. Yes, and he slowly also became the Samrat. Yes, everyone knows about that.
No, no, we don't know.
Okay, so Yudhishthir became yeah. Yeah, so Yudhishthir became a Samrat. So he actually acquired a lot of other kingdoms, and there were a lot of kingdoms which came under the shelter of Yudhishthir. So when he became the Samrat, or the the king of many kings, as we call it, at that time he performed a Rajasuya Yagya. Now, Rajasuya Yagya is performed when you are uh, being entitled as the king of the kings. You're given a particular position. Now, Duryodhan was already, thinking viciously about all the Pandavas. He was with that, always in that, conspiracy mood against them and trying to destroy them, and always in the hatred. So, but when he saw the Yudhishthir become the Samrat, he was hurt more badly, and because he wanted to become the Samrat, he said, "Why I should be becoming the Samrat?" And to his surprise, he was now, for a person to, someone, we say that someone stops drinking, for example, but someone who stopped drinking, to give him the service of serving drinks to everyone will be very difficult. you know the same kind of exercise was given to Duryodhan. So when Yudhishthir became Samrat, he was, furious to see that the kind of service Duryodhan got was to receive all the gifts from all the kings for Yudhishthir. So he was to see someone getting all the gifts, number one, uh, becoming the Samrat number one and seeing actually what he's getting, you know. So he was impacted in a double fashion. So he was receiving everything, and what is he getting? So he was more furious with that. So that built up a lot of hatred in Duryodhan against the Pandavas. So he could reach up to the extent of burning the Pandavas alive. And that conspiracy was the peak of his viciousness. And just after that, he became very open and very proud of being a vicious person against the Pandavas. Now, there are some people who put up some kind of hypocrisy that they are bad, doing some bad things, but they kind. So hypocrisy is something when which when someone tries to pretend something, but actually he is not. So it is said that the hypocrisy is the last aspect of someone who can go from wise to the virtuous. So someone who is hypocrite, at least he is pretending himself to be good. So there's a little chance that he might become good. But Duryodhan crossed that also. So he was no more a hypocrite also. He was openly vicious, openly hating Pandavas and exposing himself as carrying the hatred against them. So this is the whole, in a brief, the understanding about Duryodhan.
Hmm.
So the verse which is very important to explain the demoniac qualities, if you would like to go through that and read it, would be Bhagavad Gita chapter 16 verses 13 to 15. So I'll just show you that again. Uh, So you can mark this verse. This describes the demoniac qualities of Duryodhan. So when many people say that he was very good to his subjects, he was very good to his praja and all that. Okay, so the Shastras refer, as the Mahabharata refers to, yes, he used to perform sacrifices, he used to give charity, but this was the sequence of his charity. So that is clearly mentioned in this verse here. That is 16, 13 to 15. So we'll just touch a little bit on the, so you can mark this verse. We'll touch a little bit on this verse as well. And just to give you a brief about the Purshartha. So anyone knows what are the Pursharthas? So there are 4 Purshartha which are mentioned in our Shastras, which is Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. So when someone does dharmic activities, then he gets Artha. That means he earns the wealth. And then he can enjoy, basically, he can fulfill his desires, which is Kama. And once he does all this, and then he goes to Moksha. So these 4 stages is the um, materialistic way of leading this life towards moksha. So Duryodhan had the mentality of doing dharma, but according to his terms, doing charity or doing sacrifices according to his own ways, which were not as per the religious principles. So that makes him a person with demoniac nature. So this is the character of Duryodhan in brief. Now we will be discussing Dhritarashtra in our next session, But I think it's a good time that we can start reading chapter 1, first verse, because that is the only verse which is spoken by Dhritarashtra in the entire Bhagavad Gita. So we have done the epithets, if anyone remembers, the epithets in Bhagavad Gita, as to how many verses are there. Does anyone remember? Totally, how many verses are there in Bhagavad Gita?
700.
700. Okay. How many chapters in Bhagavad Gita?
18.
18
18.
chapters. Thank you. Who was that? Mataji?
Smita?
Smita.
That's
Thank
Smita.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Smita. So, thank you, Abhijit. So, 18 chapters, 700 verses. And some epithets we did last time as to how many times Krishna's word comes in Bhagavad Gita. Anyone remember?
575 verses.
Very
No.
well. Very good. Who was that?
I'm Tina here. Twinkle.
Thank you. Thank you, Tina. And how many times does other words come in? Did we discuss about yoga?
78 times.
Very good. Okay. So that's
Uh,
why it is called the Yoga
17.
Shastra also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why it is called the Yoga Shastra also. Okay. So we'll start reading from chapter 1 today. And the first verse, I'll share my screen with you. It is the same link which we had shared with. I'm using the same link. So if you can go to
I have
chapter
shared
1.
that link in the group as well if anybody wants to.
Thank you, Kalpesh. So just wanted to check if everyone is on that link, on that page.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just opening my book as well from here. Okay. So just before I go to this chapter, chapter 1, the name is Observing the Armies on the Battlefield of Kurukshetra. Okay. And Sanskrit is Sainya Nirikshana Yoga. So this particular chapter has 46 verses. So if you just scroll this down, chapter 1, which I've gone to, 46 verses. We're on text 1. So just with the sections of this chapter, so from verse 1 till verse 26, it is actually Sanya Nirikshan Yoga, the section called as. Chapter is also called as Sanya Nirikshan Yoga, but that section completely talks about Sanya Nirikshan Yoga, which means observing the armies on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And verses 27 to 46, they are also Sanya Nirikshana Yoga chapter, but that section is called as Arjuna Vishad Yoga, Arjuna's lamentation. Is that okay?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, so while reading Bhagavad Gita, so this is first verse. Now, this Bhagavad Gita is written in verses, and verses are sung. So it's a song. So Gita is the base, Gita. So from Gita it becomes Gita. So it is a Gita. So it has to be sung. So every verse or shloka has a meter. So in music, meter, and I'm not very good at music, but the basic understanding of meter is that where you're, when you're singing something, where your stanza or your first line which ends. that is the meter. So it start till the end of that line is a meter. So when I read this, so this is the first stanza or the first um, first meter of Bhagavad of the verse of the shloka. So which we will term it as A, first meter. Then from here till here, everybody can see my screen.
Yes.
So from
Yes.
here
Yes.
till here is the second meter, which we will term as B. From here will be the third meter, and from here it will be the fourth meter. So you can mark it if you like, if you have a book or if you have whatever. I mean, if you can mark that thing just for your understanding. So we will try to sing this as well so that you understand A, B, C, D different meters in different meters. So I'll say the verse, I'll say the shloka, and please repeat after me. Dhritarashtra uvacha
Dhritarashtra
Rashtra
Uvacha
Uvacha
Vacha
dharam kshetre kurukshetre
Dharam
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 Kshetre
Kshetre
Kurukshetre
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 samaveta
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 Yutsava
Yutsavaha
mamakaha pandavaschaiva
Mamaka
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 Pandavaschaiva
Pandavaschaya
kim akurvata Sanjaya.
Kim
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 Akurvata
Akurvata
Sanjaya
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 We'll do it one more time. Dhritarashtra uvacha
Dhritarashtra
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 Uvacha
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 dharam kshetre kurukshetre
Dharam
Dharam
Dharamkshetre
Kshetre
Kshetre
Kurukshetre
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 samaveta
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 Yutsavaha
Yutsava
Yutsavaha
mamakaha pandavaschaiva
Mamaka
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 Pandavaschaiva
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 kim akurvata Sanjaya.
Kim
Kim
Kim Kurvata
Akurvata
Kurvata
Sanjaya.
Sanjaya
Sanjaya.
Can someone read the translation of this verse?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
Um, uh, Dhritarashtra said, "O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do?"
Thank you. Can someone else please read the translation?
Yeah, I can read that.
Who's this?
Smita,
Yes, Smita, please.
so read that again, right?
Yes, the translation.
Yeah. Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjaya, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what did they do?
Thank you. Can someone else please read this verse? I mean, translation.
I can do Naisha.
Yes, Naisha.
Dhritarashtra Dhritarashtra said, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage at the Kurukshetra, desiring to fight, what they do? What did they do?
Good. Thank you. Did you notice some kind of special characters in the translation? So if you see the Rashtra, so A with a dash on top is A. So this is how we'll be reading these words. Sanjaya, so N with an extension N, Sanjaya.
Sanjay.
After my sons and the sons of Pandu, so A with a dash, do, assembled in the place of pilgrimage at Kurukshetra, S with a dash down is Sha,
Okay.
desiring to fight. What did they do?
Kurukshetra.
Kurukshetra, yeah. So that word Kurukshetra, Aksha, Sha, that is not there in English, so they write KSH, but here S with a dot at the bottom is Sh. So Ksha.
Sure.
to pronounce it together. Sure. Okay. So this is the only verse with Dhritarashtra has spoken in Bhagavad Gita, only one verse. So what does this tell you? Anyone? After reading this translation.
With that, the armies have assembled, and Dhritarashtra wants to know what is happening at the battleground.
Okay. Sorry, who was that?
That is
Rohan.
Rohan.
Rohan. Thank you, Rohan. Anyone else?
May I?
Who's that?
Sir,
Abhijit.
Abhijit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Sir, I see over here he's more eager to know about his sons. What are
Mm,
they doing over there?
mm,
Because he is calling his nephews the sons of Pandu rather than calling that what did my sons and my nephews, what are they doing over there?
mm.
So
So
I'm
he's not
seeing,
relating. He's not relating himself with
yeah,
them.
yes. So I'm
Good.
seeing that Dhritarashtra is only concerned what are my sons doing over there
Mm,
in the Kurukshetra, desiring to fight.
okay.
That is my understanding.
Very good. Thanks. Thanks, Abhijit. Anyone else? So we are trying to understand the character of Dhritarashtra from his first verse in Bhagavad Gita. And the reason why this verse is there in Bhagavad Gita, as a part of Bhagavad Gita, Dhritarashtra speaking, is to understand his character. That is the reason this verse is there. So we discussed last time that the Bhagavad Gita is a part of Mahabharata. The whole Grantha is Mahabharata, and it has about 100,000 verses in different parvas. So which parva is Bhagavad Gita? Anyone, please, if someone remembers? Did we do that last time?
It
I think,
it is
yeah.
from 25 to 42.
Okay. The chapters, right? And which parva?
But I don't.
Okay. Anyone would like to say the parva? Who was that? Who said 25 to 42?
Twinkle.
Yes, Twinkle. Yes, it
Yeah.
is 25 to 42 chapters under a certain parva. So there is
It's
Skanda
Bhishma
parva and all.
Parva. Bhishma
Bhishma
Parva.
parva. Yes,
Yeah.
correct. So it's Bhishma parva of Mahabharata, chapters 25 to chapter 42. So inclusive both makes them 18 chapters. So it was not necessary for Vyasadeva to put Bhagavad Gita, to extract Bhagavad Gita out of those whole chapters and the verses to take it out with Dhritarashtra's verse. It was not important to have Dhritarashtra verse there, just one verse of Dhritarashtra. So there is a reason why Dhritarashtra's verse is there in Bhagavad Gita. That is what we are trying to understand and trying to identify the character of Dhritarashtra. Yes. Anyone else? Yes, Rishi.
The word pilgrimage, the
Yes.
place of pilgrimage, why it is used again with Kurukshetra? That is the question.
Very good. Very good question. Very good observation. Anyone? Anyone would like to answer, Rishi? If yeah, so it's more interactive. Now, any thoughts is okay. I mean, you don't have to be, specific or anything. Any thoughts you have about this, you can discuss. No problem. Yes. So, what is the word pilgrimage in Sanskrit written here?
Pilgrimage.
Dharmakshetra.
Dharma Kshetra. Yeah.
Dharmakshetra.
Yeah, Dharmakshetra. So, Dharmakshetra is somewhere where all the religious and pious activities are performed. I mean, we today also in today's world we have some Dharmashetras, right? Where there are a lot of pious activities performed. Has anyone been to Haridwar?
Yes, long ago.
Yeah. Did you observe something there? I mean, um, if someone has gone recently in the last 4 or 5 years or 10 years, okay, I'll increase 15 years. Okay, you can increase it, but would you like to share your observations?
Yeah, 20 years back.
Yeah,
Yes.
me too.
Who's
20.
that?
Manisha.
Sorry, it's hard to identify who's speaking and to see. And I would encourage everyone to speak. Whoever. It's good that if we have this interactive session, it will be very interesting. We will connect the dots together. It will be a good
So
learning.
this is Rohan here.
Yes,
I've not
Rohan.
been to Haridwar, probably Rishikesh.
Okay. Yes, Rishikesh. What did you observe something?
Yeah, on the ghats of the river, you can see different activities. So they perform pujas. They
Uh-huh.
also have, a bath
Take bath. Yeah, in
with a
the
holy
Ganga.
dip. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
those were the
Yeah.
kind of things that.
Yes. So these activities are considered as dharmic activities. That's okay. I mean, people think that they're rituals or whatever, but they consider them as dharmic activities. They think that this is something related to dharma. We are doing something good. So taking a dip in Ganga. Offering prayers to Ganga. I've seen. So I had been to Haridwar and Rishikesh about 4 years ago, and what I observed was in Haridwar, like the center of Haridwar. Within 10 kilometers of radius, government has imposed a rule. The rule is that within 10 kilometers of radius of Haridwar center, nobody will be eating meat or having liquor.
Yeah.
So that there's a proper radius of 10 kilometers. So if you are in that radius of 10 kilometers of that particular place, you are not allowed to eat meat or have liquor. So you see that place becomes Dharmashetra. Kshetra is nothing but a piece of land area. So a place where dharmic activities are performed and impious or irreligious activities are discouraged or forced not to perform is called Dharmashetra. That is the definition of Dharmashetra. So when a place is a Dharmashetra, wrongdoings are discouraged. And why are they discouraged? Anyone? Anyone can think of any ideas? Why would
to
they be
main,
discouraged there?
to maintain the decorum of the place.
Decorum. Okay. That will be outside. Okay. That you want to keep it clean and nice. That's okay. What is the value, behind it? Why are we keeping this that way? What is the value of that place? Is my question, is my, que- are you able to get my question?
Hmm.
Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what can you think of? Why are we keeping that, uh, you know, kind of policy or rules on that place?
To maintain the energy of the place,
Very
maybe.
nice. Very nice. So there is an energy, right? There is a vibe in that place. And what is that vibe? The vibe
I
is,
always,
yeah, yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, yeah. Please carry on, Nesha.
I've been to Haridwar like 2 times so far,
Yes.
and I always felt different vibes and different energy. What I felt that like everything is temporary, or this is what I felt always there, and that one day everyone will go. This is like maybe I was too young to
Oh,
feel the
okay.
vibes, but this
Okay.
is what I felt. Maybe the Daha
Okay.
Sanskar is always going on Ghat, and
Ah,
yeah, maybe.
okay. Okay. Yeah, in Kashi also same thing happens.
And people generally we listen they say like we are going to Hardwar for last puja and
Yeah,
rituals. So
yeah.
maybe that is in mind.
That this life is temporary. Okay, okay,
Yeah.
nice. I'm also getting a vibe now. You know what? I'm able to recognize you with your voices. That's a kind of observation I have, a good realization. So why these places are called dharmakshetra? Because they have that vibe, that kind of an aura, that energy, that wrongdoings do not happen. So similarly, in terms of time, also in the day, food, you'll find this kind of vibe and kind of energy in those aspects as well. So, for example, if we see, look at the time, we call the Brahma Muhurat, which is morning 3 to 7 a.m. Just if I think most of you might be knowing this, from morning 3 to 7 a.m., that's considered to be the Brahma Muhurat. That's the so in that time, at that time, all the pious activities are can be done because the nature of everyone, the mode and the vibe is very sattvic. It's in the mode of goodness. You know because if you are if you are say you drink alcohol or you eat meat or you do all sorts of those activities, uh, those activities will not match with that time. you know in the morning at 4 a.m. it will be very difficult for you to have liquor. Some people might have it because maybe their night doesn't end till that time. That's a different thing. But it will be very difficult for someone to have liquor at 4 a.m. or have meat at 4 a.m. It will be difficult. 4:30 a.m. because that time has a vibe. It's got a nature. Similarly, these places, like Kurukshetra mentioned here in this verse as a dharmashetra, has a vibe. It is a place where religious activities take place, dharmic activities take place. It has an aura. And the question from Dhritarashtra, when he says, Dhritarashtra, O Sanjay, after my sons and the sons of Pandu assembled in the place of pilgrimage, he's saying Dharmashetre Kurukshetre, which is revealing the fear inside Dhritarashtra. That he understands that my son is vicious. He's not dharmic, although I am attached to him, but he's not doing things according to dharma. He is an he's a adharmi. So he's curious to know that what is happening at the dharmashetra, where it is very difficult for an adharmi to win. How are my sons performing there? That's what he wants to know. And Bhagavad Gita is the from here onwards is the answer to this question, the entire Bhagavad Gita. So this is a question of Dhritarashtra to Sanjay. Everyone knows who's Sanjay? Yes?
Sanjay
Sanjay
was
was
a
Sarthi of Dhritarashtra.
Okay. And what was his role here?
satellite.
He
You can
got team
actually
viewer.
you can call it television.
It's
Yeah.
television.
Actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
A few eyes
Modern
and
days
ears. Kind of thing.
modern days television was that era's Sanjay. So he was able to see what's happening because he was given that energy, that power to see Kurukshetra from Hastinapur. Okay, Hastinapur is today's times what?
Delhi.
Correct. So if we consider Delhi to Kurukshetra, how far is that? Anyone? Naisha,
150?
Yes,
100 maybe 150. I
100
never.
kilometers. Yeah,
Yeah.
roughly around that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'll tell you. So there was one of the devotees in Hare Krishna. He was, so if you see devotees of Hare Krishna, they normally go and distribute Bhagavad Gita, the same book which we are reading. So they go distribute and ask for some donation. So you will find them, at many places. I don't know whether you have seen them or no, but you will find them. They
Yes,
go
in
out and
Sydney.
they do book distribution. So
Mm.
one of the devotees, he was in a local train in India, in Mumbai. So he was distributing, Bhagavad Gita.
Mm.
So one guy took the Bhagavad Gita from him and said, "How much is this for?" He said, 150 rupees. So that man said, Krishna spoke Bhagavad Gita to Arjun free. Why are you taking money?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, very good question. Yeah, but the answer is even more interesting. So the devotee said, Bhagavad Gita was spoken in Kurukshetra, and this is Mumbai. These are just the
Oh, yeah.
transport charges.
In Delhi, there is one place. दिमाग से ही निकल गया. Close to Mehroli, Indraprasth. If
Yeah,
anyone knows,
yeah.
yeah,
Indraprastha was given to Pandavas as Khandav Prastha.
Khandaprasth.
So as
Yeah,
a
unfortunately, it's not been maintained, and there's no such way to people can go. Like
yeah.
I never been there. I
So
used to live
Khandav
in Delhi.
Prastha was transformed into Indraprastha by Pandavas very nicely. Okay. So this is the significance of Kurukshetra. So no impious activities were performed. All the pious activities are performed there. That's why there is a fear inside Dhritarashtra. So we will discuss about Dhritarashtra in our next session. The time is almost over now. But please read from the link. There is an introduction also here of Bhagavad Gita, which will give you quite a bit of understanding about what we are going to read. It's quite big. It's about 30 odd pages. It'll tell you something about the author, the person who is, different characters in Bhagavad Gita, and also a prelude to understand Bhagavad Gita. And if time permits, please read the purport of this first verse, 1.1. And we will discuss about Dhritarashtra next time and also touch on the next verse, that is 1.2. So I'll conclude with our discussion here. But any comments or questions, please ask.
Um, just one question. Uh, is he actually also asking whether in the first verse that are they desiring to fight?
Yes, he is asking, although he knows they are desiring to fight.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Okay.
he knows desiring to fight, but he's thinking that whether there will be a war or not.
Okay.
Maybe the Pandavas were so virtuous and so divine, and at the Dharmashetra, maybe they'll just give the kingdom away.
Hmm.
You know, these are also the thoughts of Dhritarashtra, which will be further, strengthened when Arjun starts speaking.
Hmm.
Yeah, good question, Kalpesh.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Anyone else like to comment or any questions? Yeah, if not, we can end our session here.